Okay, well, then we're in the right place because when we talk about a perfect marriage, um, this is how it started. And the man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man." And that's why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they became one flesh. Adam and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. This was the perfect marriage right at the beginning. But how long did that last? Not very long. When you look through the Bible and through the Old Testament, we have a lot of examples of marriages. Um, and most of them were less than perfect. Think of Abraham and Sarah. Um, he lied twice about her even being his wife. Um, and then he ended up trying to sacrifice her firstborn. Uh, think of Samson and Delilah, Rachel, Jacob, and Leah. And it goes on and on and on. Um, every marriage, whether biblical or in our world today, are always faced with challenges. So if you have a challenge in your marriage, you're in good company because we all have challenges in our marriage. What makes a marriage good is learning how to deal with those challenges and making sure that you are continuing to work on it. So as we go through the course of our little presentation this evening, we're going to see how each of us can reflect on things that have worked in the past and start to gain some strength from one another as we figure out how to build ourselves back to that ideal state that was stated in Genesis 2. There are many tools that we can use in our relationship that we are going to share throughout the course of the evening, but we want to make sure that each of us continues to push towards that perfect ideal state of your marriage. So the first thing we're going to do is a quick little exercise, and I'm going to get you to get your paper and pencil out. You're not going to share this. This is for you, but I'm going to need you to actually do this because we're going to go back to it a little bit later. Um, I need you to write down 3 things that you would consider to be essential to achieving the ideal state in your relationship. 3 things that you think would be ideal to achieving an ideal state in your relationship. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Write down 3 things, and I'm going to do the exercise myself, and then we'll continue on. Okay. Um, next step, write down 3 things your spouse or significant other would consider to achieving the ideal state. So what would your spouse consider to be essential in a perfect marriage? Okay. Now, are the 2 things on your list identical? You can come off mute. And if they are identical, I want you to come off mute and share the things that are in common on both lists.
So Glenn, I can say that mine are identical, and you want me to share what they are?
You can share one or all of them, your choice.
Okay. So one of them is honesty.
Okay. Samuel, you came off mute as well.
Yeah, I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say effective communication.
Excellent. That was on my list, both sides as well. Anybody else have another something that was on their list that they would like to share?
Faithfulness.
Faithfulness. So, can you elaborate what when you say faithfulness, what does that mean?
Well, it includes or it encompasses honesty because your wife, I expect my wife to be faithful to me and vice versa. I think she would expect me to be faithful to her. But while we're dealing with faithfulness, I'm also putting God first, my faithfulness to God, then my wife, then the rest of the family. So that's why I say faithfulness on both parties.
Excellent comments. Any other um, anybody else would like to share
Love,
something on their list?
love,
Love.
love.
Can you
We have
define that
both
a little
those
bit?
comma. It includes respect, honesty, trust. Be there for the person, each other.
Okay. When you say be there for that person, can you elaborate what it means to be there for somebody?
Being supportive.
Okay. Excellent. I'll take a couple more and then we're going to move on a little bit.
For me, it would be time.
Time. That's an excellent one. Um, thank you very much, Ken. Um, I'm gonna, when we were early in our marriage, maybe 4 or 5 years in, my wife and I were a part of a couples ministry. And one of the things we did in our couples ministry, we each bought a book and we were shared the book with the group and talked about how it could help enrich our marriages. And the book that we sort of studied was His Needs, Her Needs, Building an Affair Proof Marriage. And in the book, it was written by William Hartley. You can look it up online and I can share the link afterwards. But it had a very simple concept in it. If you go through the basic needs of a husband and wife, there will be things that are very important to your wife that may not really be on the high level of importance for you. And time, as Ken mentioned, is one of those things where time together may be high on one of your lists. Another person's list may have intimacy as a very high factor. And if you want to show me love, you'll need to supply me with those needs in a way that I will be able to accept them. Um, one of the other things that are on my list is time together doing something. I'm the type of person who wants to do something. So um, if I'm investing my time with somebody, that shows that I care for them. So I'll tell you a brief little story about early in my marriage. Um, we we were sort of figuring out the roles within the household, and one of the things that was clear to me is that my wife was very specific in what she wanted and what showed love towards her. I if my wife, I used to get home earlier from work than my wife, and if I came home early and started making dinner or painted the house or do whatever I needed to do before she came home, the only thing that she really paid attention to was whether the sink was clean in the kitchen. So early on in my marriage, I figured out I show my wife love by making sure that the kitchen sink is clean. Doesn't matter what else I do. This is the one thing that showed her that I really cared. And whether it makes sense to me or not, I figured out that I need to supply this one thing for my wife on a consistent basis so she knew that I cared. And for each of us, we need to be able to communicate what are the things that matter to us. So if it's touch and affection, we need to be able to communicate that to our spouse in a way that they can understand. And we need to be able to understand their needs and ask them specifically, what are the things that let you know that I care about you? So that's one of the things that we need to consciously do and refresh over time. This isn't a one-time effort. This is something that changes from one aspect of your life to the next. As you have young children, there may be specific needs that your wife may need that she didn't need when you just got married. Now, time, as Ken mentioned, may be more important that she has time to herself. So you show your wife love and affection by giving her time to herself, letting her go out, letting her have a bath by herself, letting her be alone. So each of us needs to continue to reevaluate what it means to share our lives with somebody else.
Len, just to
Yes.
kind of build on that, I know it's very similar to the 5 love languages, right?
Correct. Yes.
And it talks about knowing the other person's love language, and just like a language where you want to speak in a way that the other person understands. And so you got to understand the language of your spouse. They have to understand your language as well. And, very similar to what Len was saying in terms of you being able to do whatever you feel is good for you, but it's not necessarily what the other person feels. So you can go ahead and clean the whole house, but if that's not the love language of the other person, if their one is more the physical touch, or if it's gifts or whatever it is, then we're not speaking the same language. So just wanted to highlight that part of it.
Thank you very much, Pastor. The book also goes into specifics that if your need continues to be unmet and you are unsatisfied in your relationship, that's where the crack opens up and allows for other people to come in and fulfill that need that you feel that you're not receiving. So in order to fair proof your own marriage, you need to make sure that you not only are communicating what your needs are, but also that you fully appreciate and understand what the needs of your spouse are. So the next exercise is pretty simple, and hopefully this brings some good memories. I need you to write down, remember when, the last time you can say that your marriage was 10 out of 10. If it's right now, that's great, and then you can describe it. Write down when it was. And now that you have a time frame in your mind as to when you can say that your marriage was in the perfect state, I want you to write down what are some of the external factors that contributed to the success of your relationship at that time. And then are you able to replicate any of those external factors? So an external factor would be my kids were finally toilet trained and we no longer had to deal with diapers. An external factor is we just bought a new house. I just got a new job, or something from the outside that was contributing to the health of your relationship and allowed you to be in a good place. So just take a couple of minutes here. This is individual work for a second. Write down some of the things that contributed to the success of your relationship at a specific moment in time. I'll just give you another minute or two to write that, and write down some of those factors, and then we're going to share for another minute, and then we're going to go into some breakout rooms after. Okay. So I'm going to share mine because I literally am doing the exercise with you. I didn't want to do it ahead of time. Mine is pretty recent, between 20. I don't know exactly the year, but I can tell you what was happening. My children are both were settled into university and their sort of careers, and both my kids were in church and being very active. And my debt load had dropped significantly, and my job was very secure. And all of my parents were all healthy at the same time, and all of her parents were all healthy at the same time. And we just didn't have a lot of external stress happening around us. And it allowed us to sort of do whatever we needed to do to spend time together. So I don't know the exact year, but things change rapidly, and we adjust. But there was a time, a space there where everything just seemed to be gelling, which was really good. Anybody else want to share a time where the external factors that contributed to the success of your marriage?
Having time together for us to, it's a,
Having time together. Okay.
spending time together and trying to, like how would I say, um, the word, yeah, but when we have time together, when we had the possibility to go out, like spend some time, even at the hotel or somewhere else, where we are together, far a little bit far from the kids and from the problem, the house problem. So you are you there for the other one, and she's there for you. So it makes you.
It makes you feel good. That's great. Thank you, Willie. I see the name is Willie. I don't know that I've met you, Willie. Thank you for your contribution. Anybody else can sort of explain? Willie really made a great a point there about time. Time is important. In order to have an ideal marriage or an ideal state, it requires time and effort, and having that time to share is very important. Anybody else?
I was gonna say, my wife and I got baptized together on Thanksgiving Sabbath, and that was definitely turnaround. So right now is the best time in our relationship. Now that we're putting God first together, nothing seems like it can phase us. Whereas before, different things could have, and I just feel like with our trust in God now is just it's just a really powerful thing. So it's just that's an external factor that's definitely created an ideal state in my relationship at this time and moving forward. Right, we're just
Praise
really
God.
blessed.
Praise the Lord. That's great. Thank you very much, Samuel.
Okay, I can share this. I can say financial stability, because one of the things I think can hamper your relationship is financial instability. We have just eliminated our debts. I must say we're totally debt free, but other than our mortgage, there's no other debts around us, no other liquid debt.
Amen.
So, and I think that is something, even as Christians, when you have that it can burn you down, right? And it can cause the relationship to be shady. And yeah, our kids are grown up, and some of them have left the home, and so we and then the third one was we're spending more quality time together, and that is key. We can explore each other much better than with the kids away, and we don't have to have them in the way to deal with. So that's three of those stuff I think helped me a lot. So my relationship is in a good position.
Good position right now.
Good position.
Very good for your brother Mitchell. That is excellent. When we talk about finance, Money and sex are pretty much the same. They're never an issue unless you're not getting enough of either, right?
Yes, sir.
So it becomes an issue when it's missing. And stress, when financial stress can obviously be an external factor that can definitely impact your relationship. One of the seminars that we had earlier 2 weeks ago dealt a lot about finance, and eliminating debt is something that's very important. And as men, we sometimes carry a heavier burden when it comes to, excuse me, supplying, being the breadwinner for our families. And we take that stress internally at times. And and when we don't feel like we're doing enough, that can really inhibit ourselves when we go to share with our wives. So it's important that we manage our finance. Thank you very much for bringing that up, Brother Mitchell. Anybody else would like to share before we move on? Okay, I'm going to move on. So, are you in that ideal state right now? And I guess that's where Brother Mitchell is right now, and we're happy for him. But if you're not in that perfect state now, what is happening right now that is contributing to your success or lack of success? And how can you continue to protect your relationship from these external factors that make your relationship less than ideal? So these are two questions here, and you can write them on your paper. I'm not necessarily going to ask you to share, but there are some external factors that we need to continue to work through as and understanding how they impact us. One of those big factors right now is COVID. Um, if somebody else wants to come off the mic for a second, or turn on the mic, explain how COVID has changed your relationship, or how how COVID has affected your relationship.
So I can say, Len, father of four, and myself, my wife, and all four kids are home, and we're pretty much home all day. So the kids are doing online program. I'm working from home. My wife works from home. And that can be a stressor. As much as you love being around your family, I'm very much used to the commute being a de-stressing point. And, you know, and then also the opportunity to just to go away and have vacations and have those de-stressing times. COVID has really restricted that. So now we're a little more creative. Obviously, we're doing things closer to home and around and enjoying outdoors much more. But COVID is definitely having an impact from that perspective.
Thanks, Darren.
I think
Anybody else
very
want to
very similar to
Okay.
Darren. You know, where you know, Liz and I work together to begin with, right? So you know, we're in the same office or same wing, same home, and then you know, once you know everything happened, we're all home with the kids now, right? 3 kids, all online, so everyone is online. You know, with meetings and Zoom and all that sort of stuff. So you know, one thing for me is probably, you know, and Len remembers this, you know, it's that weekly football, you know, game that I would go out and play. And that was a big de-stressor for me to be able to do that on a weekly basis and just play flag football. It was usually on Thursday nights. But once everything started to shut down, so now you don't have that de-stressor. And, you know, just like everyone else, we had to find another way to do that. And so, you know, getting a bike, you know, starting to you know, bike around the neighborhood, walking more around the neighborhood, maybe even running. But you know, those are just some working out together here at home with the kids as well, because they weren't at school in that environment where they were getting enough exercise as well. So there was all these things that, and truth be told, I think, we clashed, a bit during that time as well. And that was to be expected. But that's, just what this COVID has brought on to a lot of our families. So.
Very good point. I appreciate you bringing up the exercise piece. Like you, Thursday nights was my night as well. I play my ultimate frisbee every Thursday night for as long as I can remember, 20 years. I get out and I do my thing. I go to the gym, I get to play squash, I get to interact and be competitive, and that's gone now. And my wife and I are wearing out my shoes walking around the neighborhood. And it has changed our relationship because we now have 45-minute to an hour walk every day. And there's a lot of talking in that walk where I'm not exactly a talkative person all the time. So there has been some good coming out of it, but it is definitely a stress. Anybody else want to talk a little bit how COVID is affected as an external factor into their relationship?
I was gonna say just some added responsibility with the kids being home, being their teachers. My son, he just started kindergarten online, so that's a real new experience. So my wife and I just trying to manage that and trying to be teachers. So I think some added responsibilities and different roles have come on board, as it relates to the kids. And so I think that's been a factor, just trying to manage, have patience and just manage with each other and try to make it a joint effort, because it's so easy to get stressed out with it. So that's definitely impacted our home and our family dynamic.
Thank you, Samuel. I appreciate that. I'm going to move on we're watching the time here as well. So we're going to break into groups. Pastor, if you could start assembling those. It looks like we have quite a few people on today, 24 people, maybe 8 per group would be great. Once we get in the group, either Darren, Pastor Orlando, or myself will be there. We're going to do a little bit more interaction as a small group. We're going to ask you to take off your cameras, put on your cameras so we can see each other. We'll talk a little bit about a little introduction as to who you are, and then talk in a little bit more detail about some of the external factors that may be in your marriage or that you can anticipate in the future. Some of these external factors may be children, aging parents, finance, we've talked about, loss of a job, how COVID has affected you, your church life. Are you too busy at church? Are you not active enough at church? Lack of intimacy or time together, and sickness or changing of your body and her body over time, and how those changes are affecting your relationship. So these are some of the things you want to talk about as a group. And what we want to do is share any experiences and any of the things that we've done as men that we've learned from other men that we can share with each other. So I want you to have a conversation with your wife and give their opinion of what the state of the marriage is right now. Ask your wife how you can contribute to her increased satisfaction in your relationship. So each of you, this is your homework assignment. This week, you have to go and follow up. And the second part is within the next 2 weeks, I need you to go back and check in with your wife to make sure that you are doing the things that you had committed to do. I think it's important sometimes to check ourselves and to go back and be accountable. And then Discuss with your wife what you'd like your life or relationship to be like in 2 to 5 years, and set some interim goals. So you may have a goal, whether it's financial, to be um, debt free by X amount of years, or to buy your first home by this time, or retire your loans by this time. Set a goal, whether financial or relationship wise, um, and make sure that you follow through on it. So I'll give you one example of a goal that my wife and I set recently. Um, One of the ways that I feel it's important for my wife and I to do things together. We tend to be very independent, and she will manage her own thing, and I'll do my own thing, but not we're not always doing things together. So one of the things we said we wanted to do together is to do something physical. Um, and so I tried to get her to play golf with me, and she turned me down. And I'm like, okay, I'll play with my boys. And I moved on. That wasn't a problem. But we chose to do something kayaking. So we went to Costco. We bought a kayak, and the kayaks were cheap, $400 for the kayaks. And then we went to get the rack. The rack was the expensive part, putting them on the car. But we started kayaking a couple times. We put the kayaks, go down to the river, go down to the Credit River. We kayak up north, and we just get out on the water, and it's something that we can do together. And this is something we started in our 50s. So it's never too late to start a new activity together. And this was one of the things we said we needed to find something that we could do together that we could both enjoy. And kayaking was the thing that sort of worked for us. So I encourage you, take this homework to heart and actually go and do this. It will be a blessing to you and your spouse and your relationship if you really take the time to ask them how they are in their relationship and how they would like to improve that satisfaction. So we've left a couple of minutes for question and answer. Um, I am not a therapist, but there are many other people with a lot of experience on the call that may be able to answer and help with some of the questions. And Pastor Poulet at the end of the call will help direct you to some qualified family therapists that are recommended at the conference level, because there may be some issues in your marriage that go beyond sharing in a group that require you to get some help. And sometimes help is what you need. You may need somebody else to talk to. And that's important as well, that you recognize that as a man and as a couple, that if you need help, go get the help. So we want to encourage you that this may just be a conversation starter with your wife, this homework, and maybe you find that there is something that you need to work on, and we encourage you to go and take the time and work on that. So I will open the floor for a few questions before we wrap up. I think our time is just